In today's video, we have a ton of news to talk about, including the latest trade rumors on the Ottawa Senators and the Shane Pinto situation, as well as the Lightning and the goaltending situation they're faced with. We have a couple of big signings in Minnesota, some more news in Ottawa regarding a new president of hockey operations, lots of waivers news, some information as well on the stalemate between Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale, and the Ducks, and Devon Toews, and the Avalanche's latest extension talks as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of news to talk about here today. A couple of these topics we did touch on in a prior video, so I'm just going to mention them quickly. If you want a more in-depth analysis, you can check out the other video, which I'll link up here in the YouTube cards, which was posted earlier today. But we did see the Ottawa Senators make a fairly substantial announcement that they've hired a president of hockey operations, which is Steve Staois, who comes over from the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, Steve Staois has a long working relationship with new owner Michael Andlauer from their days in the Hamilton Bulldogs organization in the OHL. Worked well together for an extended time on multiple championships. Certainly lots of trust there. Staois had a long NHL career and has been an executive between junior hockey and a little bit of time in the NHL now for a fair bit of time as well. So I think he's a great, really smart, well-respected executive, which should add another layer of ideas and wisdom in the Sens front office. Andlauer did say that he didn't think the Sens front office was robust enough, that Pierre Dorion needed more help and more support, and I do agree with that for sure. I think this is a great hire by the Sens. We also saw big news in the waiver wire that Spencer Martin of the Vancouver Canucks was picked up on waivers by the Columbus Blue Jackets. So he'll now report to Jackets training camp. All the other players from yesterday, including youngster Ty Smith of the Penguins, cleared. So I would not be one bit surprised if Ty Smith is later traded to get a fresh start, especially now that he's cleared waivers. A little bit easier, more flexibility for an acquiring team to place him either in the NHL or in the American Hockey League without having to go through the waivers process here. Already a bunch of new players on waivers today as well, including several players from the Rangers like Riley Nash, Connor Mackey, Alex Belzile, Adam Gaudette, who's now with St. Louis as well, and a few others. So lots of waiver activity, which will be something we see a lot in the next few days. The St. Louis Blues also today announced that they've released Nick Ritchie and Andy Walensky from their professional tryouts. So I know a lot of people thought Nick Ritchie stood a good chance to get a contract in St. Louis. The way they looked at it is he just didn't quite do enough to really bump anybody out of a spot. They really want to get Jake Neighbors into a full-time spot in the lineup this year, and it just wasn't intriguing enough to make the team better and bump another player out of a spot. So unfortunately for Nick Ritchie, he won't be getting a contract in St. Louis. I don't know what comes next for him. Training camp is still ongoing for a little while. I don't know if he can catch on with another team or if he'll end up out of the league this year. It's kind of difficult to say where things go on that front. A couple of injury updates. I know with Tampa, I know we're going to talk further about their situation with goaltending, given the Vasilevsky significant injury. But we also found out today that he's not the only one in the Lightning that's going to miss the start of the season. Recently signed Logan Brown. Another injury for this guy. It's been the story of his career. He's a high first-round pick in Ottawa. Could not stay healthy. Put in some good time in the American Hockey League. And it just seemed like every time he had a chance, there was always something injury-wise. When he did play in the NHL, I know there were some issues with his pace and keeping up. And then he was to St. Louis, his hometown team. Doesn't stay there very long, 1 year, and he's out. And then now he's in Tampa, and he's already hurt again. He's a huge guy, big centerman. Lots to like about his skill level, but he just can't seem to keep it together and stay healthy. I don't know what's going to happen with him, but he is going to be out. What they're calling it out indefinitely. It won't be ready to start the season. As far as how long he's going to be out, I don't know exactly, but still not good news on Logan Brown. We had a couple of big signings today in Minnesota, and there could be another one to follow here in the next little bit. They started earlier today by announcing a signing of veteran Matt Zuccarello. He gets a 2-year contract extension, $4.125 million. I like this signing a lot for the Wild. Zuccarello's been a real good productive player for them. Has great chemistry with Kaprizov, both on and off the ice. Certainly been a mentor for him, as well as a good line mate, good all around good influence on many aspects. So certainly Part of this was to obviously keep Zuccarello around because he's been a good player. Part of this is also to make sure Kaprizov is happy too. Billy Guerin is out to get some extensions done right now before camp is over and before the season starts, as we can see, because he also announced just a little short time ago that he signed Marcus Foligno to a 4-year extension at $4 million a season. Ryan Hartman also, and entering the last year of his deal, is next. These other deals seem to be coming together so quickly. I wouldn't be shocked if that gets done over the weekend here or sometime soon. We'll see. But Guerin's certainly on a mission to get his players extended that he wants to keep. The Foligno extension to me is a little rich. I mean, the 4-year deal, okay, that maybe, he's already 32. This is going to, he already had 1 year left, so this is going to probably keep him in Minnesota the rest of his career, which is fine. But I mean, if you look at his stats, like, he's typically a 25-point player. Definitely a bottom 6 guy. That's just a lot of term and a lot of money. I mean, I know maybe Foligno plays higher in the lineup at times for Minnesota, but I don't know. I mean, I understand Guerin's rationale. He said that he likes the team a lot more with Foligno on it than off of it. And if he didn't extend him, he'd be immediately looking for that type of player to replace him. And I get that. You need to have that big, strong guys who are not afraid to be physical, not afraid to play, be not really like a fighter, but because he will do that too. But I understand the kind of player Foligno is, and I do appreciate what he brings, and I do think that Minnesota should try to keep him. I have no doubt that keeping him is the right move. I just honestly think that's a little too much money. They're already in a tough cap situation with all the dead money, with Parise and Suter's buyouts, which I know is not going to affect the entire, because all the next couple of years are the real bad years, and then it gets a little bit easier. But still, I don't know. I like the fact that they're keeping them and they extended them. I just think it's a little bit much on the money side. But let me know what you think down below. Like I said, Billy Guerin's obviously fond of Zuccarello, Foligno, and Hartman. Wants to keep them all. 2 out of 3 are now done as of today, and we'll see where everything goes from there. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked to see a Hartman deal done soon enough. Another extension that's being worked on is Devon Toews with the Avalanche. Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick talked about it in a 32 Thoughts podcast that came out today. The latest update on that is essentially both sides want to get something done. There's definitely, heavy interest in the team and the player to make it work, and they want to keep the relationship going. It's been a terrific fit. However, according to Friedman, the big obstacle right now is that the Avalanche, because of Toews' age, because he's in that 30 bracket, that he's probably willing. It sounds like he's willing to go long term here, but the team, because of his age, doesn't want to go long term because of the age that he is when the contract kicks in. So they're probably, instead of wanting to do a long term deal at 8 years or 7 years, they probably prefer closer to 5. So far, it sounds like Toews and his agent are not necessarily opposed to that, but the problem is when you go on a shorter term, they don't necessarily want less cash, or at least not a whole lot less cash. So you typically are going to end up with a bigger AAV. So in those deals, when you get an older player like that going, not that he's old by any means, but if you take a look at where the contract would start, and if he does an 8-year deal, he would be at that point. He'd be well into his late 30s, pushing 40. But at that stage, those last couple of years that they usually tack on, it's usually going to be a small salary, and it's really just to level things out. It gives the players some extra security, but it also helps with the cap hit. But if they don't want to go that long, it's going to make the cap hit higher, and that's going to make it that much more challenging to do. So I'm not sure how they compromise here. Even going 6 years is still going to give you a higher AAV than you want. They're not far away from having to do the Mikko Rantanen extension too. So it's tricky. So as much as they all want to make it work, it's going to be tough to do, and we'll have to see how things work out. But that's where things stand on that one. In Anaheim, a couple of reporters reported on this, including Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast today as well. It just seems like Zegras and Drysdale are both basically at a stalemate with Pat Verbeek and the Ducks. The players are sticking to their guns. They're not backing down on their wants and needs and what they're requesting here. And there's a lot of concern at this point that's going to cause them to miss the start of the season. Now, if you take a look at the situation in Anaheim, it's confusing because, some are saying to Friedman that they're worried Pat Verbeek's kind of maybe doing kind of at risk, putting a lot at risk here, which I think it could damage the relationship. This is a team who's not in win now mode. They are not up against the cap. So they don't have those issues. You look at the Senators with Shane Pinto, like they're trying to go into win now mode and they're up against the cap. So it's a different scenario. It has nothing to do. They're not trying to lowball Pinto. They're just trying to create the space. A different scenario in Anaheim where they have the space and they just don't want to give it to them. They're lowballing these guys hardcore. Like the last report we had Zegras being offered about $4 million, like on a 3-year deal, like 4 times 3 or something like that. Like that's ridiculously low. There's no way he's going to agree to that. Now, I don't know. I mean, Pat Verbeek is known for being, a really good negotiator and being stubborn and not going to, when he gets his heels dug in that he's not going to do something, he's not going to do something. But like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand the hesitation here. Now, I understand with Drysdale a little bit more because he's coming off of, he's had a lot of injuries. But with Trevor Zegras especially, like, get this done. He's one of the most exciting players in hockey. He's willing to stay and commit long term. I just don't see what the big deal is. I don't know exactly what the dollar figure they're looking for in a 7-8 year deal, because it must have been high enough that the team and Verbeek thought it was ridiculous and they wouldn't want to do it, which is why they were talking shorter term. So it seems crazy, and at this point it seems, not guaranteed, but likely that Zegras and Drysdale are not going to start the season on time, and like a lot of people just feel like it's unnecessary given where the team situation is. It's unfortunate and unnecessary, and we'll see. Will it damage the relationship? Will it get to the point that either want to trade? Hasn't gotten there yet. Doesn't mean it won't. We'll have to wait and see and follow the situation a little bit further. Now, of course, with Tampa, we know, like I mentioned, the Vasilevsky injury, pretty significant deal for Tampa. Jonas Johansson becomes the guy, which is a scary thought, to be honest. No offense to him, but he has not proven himself at all in the NHL, and the guys coming behind him don't have any establishment in the NHL either. So therefore, like, the Lightning are in a tough spot. Now, from all the comments they've made publicly so far, they're making it sound like their full intention is just to deal with it internally with what they have, and when Vasi comes back, he comes back, and hopefully they get enough points banked that it's going to be okay. I just don't see that happening, considering how ultra competitive this team is and how badly they want to win year after year after year. I just don't see them taking that risk. There's just no way. I'd be shocked if they don't do something. Either pick up a goalie on waivers or make a trade. There's got to be some activity and movement within the Lightning organization at that position. There has to be. Now, I understand the fact that Vasi's not expected to miss all year, so it's not like they can go out and make a big purchase and get a bigger name with a bigger contract and not have to worry about it all year. That's not the case at all. But, you could probably finagle some things so that you can figure out getting another goalie that you can keep that can slide into the backup role. Jonas Johansson really should be their number 3. That's what he's typically been. When he's played more, it hasn't really worked out. So I think teams like Tampa here need to be cautious, or they're going to slip further down the standings. There's just no doubt about it. I just don't see, as much as, like, we've seen this team deal with other injuries. We've seen them deal with Stamkos having long-term deals. We've seen them deal with Kucherov being out long-term. Point's been out long-term. Cirelli's been out long-term. Hedman's missed time. Like, Chernak's missed time. Like, go down the list. They've survived. Yes, it's impacted them, but they were never at risk of being a non-playoff team or really having catastrophic failure. But Vasi is the backbone of that team. They've never had to deal with this before. As long as he's been the starting goalie since he took over from Ben Bishop, he really hasn't missed any significant time at all. So he's been the backbone. And like I've said before, the last few years in the playoffs, they go with, like, as much as they have a lot of great players and they've had a lot of good teams, they go as far as he takes them. If he's off, it's entirely different. Look at when they were playing the Leafs they played the Leafs twice down the playoffs. And when Vasi's on versus when Vasi's not on, completely different game. So to me, they're not nearly as dangerous without him. I think they have to address it. Now, how can they do that? Well, there's some that feel they should talk to Calgary about a Dan Vladar trade. That could get complicated, but I agree it would be a good option. If they can finagle their cap situation to figure out trading for Vladar and keeping him, it would be great. But the problem is they are very low on draft capital and prospects, which is probably what Calgary's going to want. They're not going to move Vladar for a roster player, because the whole point of moving Vladar is to get Dustin Wolf in the NHL as the backup goalie to Jacob Markstrom, and they are in their own cap situation. They really can't. They don't want that back. If they're going to trade Vladar, they're going to want picks or a prospect that can go to the minors. And Tampa doesn't really have that. So as much as it sounds great and would be great, I just don't know if it could work. But that is one of the guys to look to. Otherwise, you could talk to teams that have a good number 3, but a lot of those good number 3s, they're not going to want to move them. However, there's going to be some that probably get plucked on waivers. If you look at the waiver wire, in the next little while, as teams finalize their rosters for opening night, there's a good chance you're going to see names like Martin Jones out of Toronto, maybe Hellberg as well with Pittsburgh. Stolarz, Anthony Stolarz is another one in Florida. Like, these guys are likely all hitting the waiver wire because were signed to be number 3s, and these teams know that there's a risk there that they're going to have to sneak them to the minors on waivers, and hope they don't get picked off. And you got to be strategic about when you put them on waivers. So could Tampa do like Columbus did today with Spencer Martin and grab one of these guys? It might be the easier way to go. I think they're going to explore trades, but they're going to explore the waiver wire too, and we'll see. But they have to do something. In Ottawa, too, is Shane Pinto. According to Dave Pagnotta, thefourthperiod.com, they have looked at a variety of things. We've talked a lot about Matthew Joseph and Eric Brandstrom being the main players. They're exploring trading to free up some money to sign Pinto. But according to Pagnotta, he says they're also weighing the options of maybe moving Artem Zub. Now, to me, that would be a mistake. I think right now, the way that they're 5, 6, 7 defensemen have played in the preseason, I think the third pair could be an issue for them. And if you trade your number 4 defenseman, then that's going to make your second pair weaker, and then you're only going to have half your decor that's going to be pulling their weight. The other half could be questionable, and you can't risk having a bad start to the season. You need to have a good start. You know, you should have good goaltending. You have 2 capable goalies for sure, and if the decor is up to snuff in front of them, it's going to make their life easier. But if not, then that's an awfully risk, in my opinion. So I personally wouldn't trade Zub. I understand that he might not have had the greatest season last year compared to what he was the year before, but it's just awfully risky. I mean, he frees up a good chunk of money that you can get Pinto signed, no problem. If you want to sign Josh Bailey, who's on a PTO, you could. Maybe you can even bring in another cheap defenseman as a depth option. I don't know. It's risky because right now you're looking at your third pair. Like, Hamonic has not looked great. I know it's early in the preseason. He can find his game. You know, if he can play a limited role like he did last year, it might not be so bad. You got Clevin as an option. You got Lassie Thompson as an option. Bernard Docker. But Lassie Thompson's looked decent, but I've seen moments with Clevin where he'll say, okay, maybe he's ready. And then I've seen other moments where, like, you know what? Wouldn't hurt if he even had a half a season in the AHL. So I think it wouldn't be great for Clevin, not so much what the Sens need, but what Clevin needs to be a long term to help him out. I think he should spend at least half the season in the American Hockey League, and maybe he should call up later in the year. And once he's called up, maybe he sticks. Bernard Docker has not looked great. I'm starting to wonder if it's going to work out for him. Lassie Thompson's been okay, and then you get Hamonic. So it's iffy, man. Like, you get a lot of youth back there. Zub's a little older, a little more mature, has been a stabilizer. I wouldn't chance it, but apparently his name is in play, and I'm sure they can get a decent return, and it would certainly help cap-wise. I don't know. It just seems risky, but let me know what you think in the comments. We'll talk about it further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.